another Coffee with Samso, where we speak with ASX companies about the stories that they are telling us, and we speak to the guys in charge. Today we've got Galileo Mining Limited. ASX code is GAL. Market cap as we speak is 170 million. I've got Brad Underwood here, who's the managing director and the chair of the company. Galileo is all about PGE, platinum group elements, and nickel, and their main project is in Norseman and the Fraser Range. So Brad, welcome to Coffee with Samso again. It's been a while, probably in 6 months, I say. Finally caught you again. First Coffee with Samso 2023. Can you sort of remind us what Galileo is all about?
Yeah, great to be here again. I think it has been about 6 months. Last time we spoke, we'd just made the discovery at Callisto. Galileo is very much an exploration company. We have been focused on nickel over the past 5 years, and in focusing on nickel and making a nickel discovery, we also found PGEs with it. So it's very important for us that we've now made a discovery and we're going through that resource drilling phase. We are an exploration company going into resource development, so we have seen our market cap go up very quickly on the back of that discovery, and we think it'll go up again if we're able to show that we have an economic mineral resource, and depending on the size of the discovery that we've made. So it's very early days. We're not sure how big the mineralisation is that we have at Callisto. That's at our Norseman project, and we just need to keep drilling and find out.
Yeah, so look, I think when we first met was just after COVID, early 2020. The story was nickel, you know, you were explorer. Then the story changed to Callisto. Focus has been on Callisto. Is 2023 going to be all about Callisto and more about Callisto?
2023 is the year of Callisto. This is the year that we're going to make it happen, and we'll find out exactly what we've got there. It's very hard for us to understand without the data, without the drilling, to know how big that mineralized footprint is and how big a potential resource might be. It's very early days, and that's where the opportunity lies. So you mentioned our market cap is around 170 million at the moment. If this ends up being a much bigger deposit, then we'd expect that market cap to be multiples higher than it currently is. If we make more discoveries, we'd expect the same result. And we do have a lot of different prospects at our Norseman project area. And remember that this is the first time mineralisation of this kind has been discovered around Norseman. And with that and the money that we have, we can now thoroughly explore the tenements in the area. So there's a high likelihood that we will make further discoveries. And in any event, we've yet to find out how big Callisto is. So those are both things that will be happening this year.
Okay. Look, when we discovered Callisto, it was sort of scattered, and then, you know, it's all about drilling lines and getting definition of where mineralisation is. I looked at one of your presentations, which I thought really can be, summarise what we're talking about, what Callisto is all about. Can you give us your narrative? I think this is in your Mines and Money presentation. I think it's slides 8 and 9. Can you give us sort of your narrative of looking at that section, how investors like us out there can sort of understand what you're talking about?
The keys to understanding mineralisation include the grade distribution, how the metals occur in the earth, and the continuity between drill holes. Because when we get into a mining stage much later on, then it's really important that there's continuity for the mineralisation, so that then when the rock is moved, the rock that is moved contains the metal. It sounds very simple, but the way to make money in mining is to mine the rock that has the metal and the value associated with it. So where you have continuous mineralisation, as we do at Callisto, it means that if it ends up being mined, it's much easier to mine all of the mineralisation rather than to have dilution and to mine waste rock. So there's always ore and not ore. You'll be familiar with the way that mines operate. They dumb geology down to ore and not ore. There's always waste, there's always some dilution. So to minimize any dilution is leads to better quality mining outcome. So going back to the geology, where the mineralisation is continuous, where there is a thick blanket of mineralisation that can be mapped between drill holes, then that will provide a better quality outcome when it comes to resource modelling, and then ultimately if it gets mined as well. So when we look at those sections, the first thing to note is that the mineralisation is continuous between drill holes. There is a very thick blanket, in some areas up to 39 metres downhole width, and I think the minimum we've reported is something like 10 to 15 metres, and it's continuous across those sections. There is an east-southeast plunge component to the mineralisation, so we're now talking about the geometry of the mineralisation as it occurs in the earth, and that's again understanding the shape of the mineralisation so that we can then start to develop a resource model and build up the three-dimensional model of the grade and the size of the target rock. So that's what the sections are really showing. And when we work from west to east, when we look at the grade distribution, you can see that it is very slowly increasing over 500 or 600 metres across strike. So as we're getting deeper, we are seeing wider zones and internal zones of the mineralisation that are carrying above 3 grams per tonne 3E, plus the nickel and copper associated with it. So that's the two takeaways from the sections: the continuity between the drill holes and also the grade distribution appears to be increasing to the east. The mineralisation starts off flat line and then dips as we head east. Where we are looking at that deeper mineralisation that we're targeting with the diamond drilling, we are seeing broader zones of higher grade, and part of the geological interpretation is that is where the source of the mineralisation begins. It's that eastern area, and of course, because that's the way that we're thinking, that's going to be the target for the upcoming drilling.
I know in the early times when you had announced the discovery and sections came out, and I think in one of our previous conversations we talked about it, but we just didn't have the element of you're saying that you're seeing that the depth is getting better in terms of numbers and width, whereas before we were sort of speculating that, could it go? Is that what you're seeing now? Like you have that more confidence that you are seeing the numbers getting better as you go deeper?
That's what we're seeing, and with the drill results we put out today, we have, I think, from memory, it's around 30 metres at 2 grams per tonne, and then internal to that we have around 14 metres at 3 grams per tonne, there or thereabouts. And that's at a half gram per tonne cutoff. So when we look at the other drill holes that are reported at the same half gram per tonne cutoff, there are plenty of results of 20 to 30 metres, 1.5 to 2 grams 3E. And then as we get deeper at the same half gram per tonne cutoff, we are seeing the grades increase. So that is a fact. We don't know if they increase further, and that's of course what we're hoping, or the mineralisation may even get thicker again, or the geometry might change at depth. So we're looking at a mineralised pulse that has come off the parent rock unit at depth. It's come up and then heads to the west. So if we find the source of that mineralisation, then it may actually have greater and higher grades again, and it might have a bigger geometry associated with it.
So if you and I went to the races and one of the horses, the name of the horse is it gets better down dip, would you put money on that horse?
We are putting money on that horse, that's why we're drilling it. So we are committed to finding out what's there regardless. Well, when we have to, that's our job, right? So, and that's also where the opportunity is. We need to drill out the mineralisation to understand it, not just for the potential resource that we will put together based at Callisto, but it will also tell us about the exploration potential along strike. So the strategy we're going with at the moment is to drill out Callisto, understand what we have, get the experts in to look at the rock, tell us exactly what we're dealing with, and that will assist us with exploring along strike. So at the moment we have a reasonable idea of the geometry of the mineralisation where it's been drilled, but we're still drilling it, so we don't know how far it goes. We don't know whether that grade distribution changes. We don't know the best places to explore. So we don't want to go and explore the 5 kilometres of strike length we have north of Callisto before we understand what we already have. So it might be that the best place to explore is that junction between the ultramafic and the Gabbro, and we need to find that out before we start putting too much time and money into exploring along strike. Then we have the Mission Sill, which has over 10 kilometres of strike as well. Similar situation, ultramafic and mafic sill. We've got a lot of air core results through there. Where's the best place to explore? Well, we'll take our model from Callisto where we know we have really good grades. So that's part of the reasoning behind what we're doing.
I mean, it must be good that, you know, at least you can sort of define. First step is the geophysics giving you that contrast. And if the geochemistry comes back, that's a nice model to have, actually, in your area anyway.
Absolutely, because the outcrop in the area is the parent non-mineralized sill, so that doesn't have any mineralization. But we know what happens at depth because of the drilling that we've done, and that magnetic signal is very strong right along the margin of the sill. So if that turns out to be the best location for the development of mineralization, then it becomes a very straightforward target for us to go and test.
My next question, I guess, it's a fairly general one. You know, Callisto is a PGE target. Can it be a nickel project or not a PGE project? Because sometimes we take things very fast, as we do, right? So, and in your latest announcement, you mentioned, you know, you got a lot of copper and gold. So the question is, what is Callisto? You guys got a picture? Any thoughts for us investors to try and, you know, get our head around what you guys have there?
Yeah, we've got a very strong picture of what we think we have, and it's palladium dominant with nickel and then all of the other metals associated with it. So with today's announcement about the increase in copper and gold grades, that's a sweetener on top. We think that the main value drivers of the project are palladium and nickel, and because of the way that the mineralization occurs with sulfides, any other metals associated with the sulfides should come out with the processing. And we've just started our metallurgical test work looking at sulfide flotation. We do have analogies around the world with disseminated sulfide mineralization that have responded very well to flotation and in economic production, such as those in South Africa. So we expect that the sulfide flotation will extract a lot of those metals. And what we are saying when we release copper, rhodium, gold, platinum results is that they can form a large contributing part of the overall value of the project, but the fundamental value of the project comes from the palladium and the nickel.
Okay. How much of Callisto, I mean, we talked about what you understand about Callisto. How much is still not understood? You know, are we talking about something that's new, that's different to other provinces, you know, PGE provinces around the world? Are they the same or they're hybrid? You know, can you give us your thoughts?
There's a lot we don't understand. We haven't even finished the drill out of Callisto. Every time we drill, we're still hitting mineralization. At some point, hopefully long into the future, we'll reach the edge of the ore body, if we can call it an ore body. I think it's a JORC compliant term. Let's call it the mineralization. Yeah. At some point, we'll reach the edge of it. We haven't got that far yet. When we reach the boundaries of the mineralization at Callisto, then we'll be in a good position to understand that very small location within the 5 kilometres of strike length that we've got. And then we've got the over 10 kilometres of strike length at Mission Sill. So with geology, we work from the unknown to the known. At the moment, pre-discovery, it was completely unknown. We now have some understanding of the shape of the mineralization near surface, and we're still drilling it out at depth. Whether that grade changes, whether it gets larger, we've yet to understand. And then we've got all of the potential along strike as well. So it's a very early stage exploration project where we control 95% of the prospective ground in the new region. It's been deemed prospective for over 50 years. It's been written up in the Geological Survey of Western Australia as very prospective for nickel and PGEs. But this is the first really high quality mineralisation that has been discovered. It's very, very open for a lot of new discoveries, and the ultimate size and potential has yet to be discovered.
I must say, after you've been talking about it, there's a point that I think we need to emphasize, is that the fact that you guys are concentrating in such a small area to get an understanding of how the mineralization has happened and then apply, because a lot of projects I see is that they tend to go out and try and get that marketability of the project very quickly to say, hey, we got such a big thing, and then it falls in a heap because it doesn't connect. I think it's very important, because that's a strategy that's really involve a lot of courage, and I always say courage is relatively connected to the size of your wallet. And is that a fair comment? Because I think you guys do have a decent bank balance, and I think the fact that you're drilling this out to get a firm understanding is probably a good concept.
Our strategy is driven by our major shareholders, as for most companies, and our major shareholders need resources. So that's why we're focusing on Callisto. We need to drill out the resource there, and we need to find more resources that hopefully will be amenable to get mined. So the strategy is really coming from our major shareholders who have put a lot of money into the company. We still have over $20 million in the bank, so that's a lot of drilling for us coming up. And we're focused on the resource. So the ultimate value of the company will depend on the quality and size of the resource that we've discovered and whether we can make more discoveries. So we're not in it for those short-term gains and market-focused promotions about getting the share price up in the short term. We've got the funding. We raised over $20 million back in July. Our job now is to determine the size of those resources, and the ultimate value, like I said, will depend on those resources and whether they can be mined. At the moment, it's looking really good, and the more we find, the better it is for us.
I must say that from this moment you've done the first coffee Samso, I think that's always been the trend, is that you guys are out there spending the money to find something, because had a lot of hit and misses, as we all know, and then and now you got Callisto. Look, the last couple of announcements going back, I think one was 12th December and today, those numbers, this could be a summary of what you've just said. Those numbers that you're seeing, that you've announced, how is that adding to the picture for Callisto going forward? Because obviously the grades, as you say, getting better. How do you see that as impactful from your side?
Better grades are always a good thing. So a lot of resources, when you look at what's actually mined, say if there's a 10 million tonne resource, just talking in general terms here in the mining industry, then you'll find that there is a high grade component of that resource that will drive the overall economics of that mine. So although the resource might be quoted as 10 million tonnes at a particular grade, when you dig down into that resource, you might have 3 or 4 million tonnes that is the main driver of the value of the mine and can support the extraction of the remainder of that resource. So what we're really focusing on, looking for those higher grade units at Callisto that will really create a high value deposit. So every time we release better mineralisation, more consistent thicknesses, higher grades, we think that we're approaching a point where we'll understand that there is a high grade component which will make a very effective resource. There's a point in resource drilling, which I've been through a few times now, where you become very comfortable with the scale of the resource, and you know that given a particular metal price, then that resource will always get mined. So we're working towards that point at the moment. So at some point, hopefully in the very near future, we'll be able to I will be able to personally feel comfortable that we're in a position to have a very high quality resource that will get mined. There are some resources that are discovered that are always going to get mined regardless of the fluctuations in the commodity price, and those are the premium types of resources that as an explorer we try and discover.
Okay. News flow going forward. I know you've said the bold statement, the year of 2023 is the year of Callisto. What's the news flow going forward?
All about drill results and the metallurgical program that we're undertaking. We have over 15 drill holes that we're waiting for assays back. So every time we get a particular material number of those drill results back, we'll then release that to the market. And then we've got drilling starting up again in about a week or so. So they had a short break over Christmas. We'll get straight back into the deeper drilling. I mentioned before the grades are increasing. There's been a theme of this this whole discussion, and we really need to understand if that continues at depth. Are those grades getting thicker? Are they getting higher? And the other thing to note is that we have been doing quite a close space drilling program, which will lend itself to a good resource model. But as we get deeper, we now understand the plunge component, the way that the mineralisation is travelling through the earth, the geometry. So we're going to start stepping out, which means that our step out holes have the ability to impact their overall model a lot quicker. So we'll step out 100 metres, 200 metres and start doing drilling. If the mineralisation continues and we've stepped out 200 metres, 300 metres, then we can add very quickly to the size of that mineralised footprint. And those are some of the aims that we have over the next few months is to continue to do the deeper drilling and then do larger step outs to demonstrate that it continues or it doesn't. And that's the risk.
Okay. Going forward, how do you want investors to view Galileo? Because, I mean, I can see, I've been fortunate enough to see the journey from you guys, you know, plotting along discovery, trying to make the discovery sustainable, and then saying, hey, this is how we're gonna, I think this is getting better or deeper or, you know, or bigger for a resource. How do you want investors now to view Galileo?
We're fundamentally an exploration company that are now going through the process of resource definition. So we're drilling out a resource. And before we started filming, I mentioned the analogy of fishing. We've got a good fish on the line, you can feel it's there, we're reeling it in and we don't know what type of fish it is, whether it is a sweet, flavorful fish, how big it is. Where at the moment we're pulling up what is a very good fish and we're about to find out how big it actually is and whether there's more there. So we're not going to stop fishing, we're not going to stop exploring. We'll find out what is at Callisto and we'll explore along strike. So the fact that we've made a discovery at Callisto will not prevent us in any way from starting to explore along strike. In fact, it's the opposite. We've made one discovery. We now look to make as many discoveries as possible within that region based on the understanding that we've quickly developed about what we've found. So before we found Callisto, we're doing exploration campaign drilling. We're now going into continuous drilling programs with the rigs on site every day of the week, drilling 24/7. So it's a very different operation, different style of exploration, but we are fundamentally still an exploration company, still looking to make discoveries, and the bigger the better.
Not to put words in your mouth or trying to create hype, can the deposit get, I mean, we all know it can go either way, right? But can it get bigger? I mean, I'm thinking your analogy with the fishing, right? Sometimes the fish is following you as you reel them in. You only know the size of it when it turns around, decides to go a different direction. Is that a potential? I guess it's a potential in any project, but how's your gut feel at this point in time?
I think it's the perfect analogy because as we drill at depth, mineralisation can begin to go in other directions. Where at the moment we're drilling a tongue of mineralisation that's popped out from the main rock body. If at depth it starts to have a different shape, if it extends much further along strike, perhaps there's a continuous layer that could go for kilometres, and that wouldn't be surprising based on the style of geology that we're dealing with. So the parent rock unit goes for over 5 kilometres. At the moment we're drilling out a band that's still a good size. It's over 500 metres by approximately 200 metres. At depth that could get much bigger very quickly.
Okay. I always like to finish this bit where I get you guys to sell your soul, right? So to the guys out there who's sitting on the fence, should I buy, should I not? What would your pitch be to get him over the line?
I think the best pitch we have is the demonstration of the work that we've done in the past. And when we look at the capital raises that we've completed, every capital raise we have done since we've listed has been at a higher price to the last one. We are fully funded at the moment. We have over $20 million in cash. We listed, our capital raise price was 20 cents. Next capital raise, 22 cents. Next one was 26 cents. Last one, $1.20. That's the way that we are trending. We always look to build value and sustain value. At the moment, the share price has dropped along with the rest of the market. It's a perfect opportunity for people to buy into a company that's going through a resource definition phase with the potential for a lot more discoveries along strike.
Yeah, unfortunately you've fallen into this boring part of your journey, but it's also a time for opportunities, as you just said, right? It's a good time to get in.
I think it's the exciting part. We just don't know what we have.
Yeah.
This could be one of the best discoveries in years. There's been no discoveries in this area for over 50 years. Suddenly we have a breakthrough discovery. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah. Look, perfect way to finish. Brad, first, as I said, first coffee of Samso 2023. Let's make sure that that fish becomes from a little trevally to a big tuna. But look, again, as usual, we give away our coffee. I don't think you got this coffee the last time. It's a coffee organised by Florence Drummond. It's by a group called Kick. They're a group of companies who supply they're indigenous businesses that supply solutions to our industry, and they've branded themselves as Kick. And also, as an additional, we've given you little bags to take your coffees away.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But anyway, we'll all have a good fun.
Start to the new year.
Yeah, good start to the new year. And thank you, Brad. And let's hope we continue the journey.
Will do. Speak soon.
Thank you.